Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Jeff happened to be our first guest when we moved over here to Revolution Radio, and he's been a very good friend of the GIC and myself, and a supporter, and we support his work immensely. For those of you that don't know or don't remember, Jeff Harvey spent 6 years in the United States Navy and was inducted into a watcher group that infiltrated many of the Jesuit Illuminati-controlled military organizations. He was assigned to EC Division, the electronics unit, and worked in the intelligence center on board the now decommissioned aircraft carrier CV-67. Today, Jeff is board certified in nutrition, specializes in homotoxicology for creating detoxification protocols utilizing homeopathics, oxygen species combined with hydrogen, and system-specific plant endocrine adaptogens delivered by traditional means as well as holographic methods. Jeff provides the scalar systems used for coding holograms to various practitioners and companies entering the field of holographics. His current research focuses on information field modulation of matter, clinical research involving patterned frequency engram modulation and the central nervous system, pain neomatrix, activating dormant areas of the brain-mind matrix, astral manipulation, and consciousness projection in both animate and inanimate partners. He utilizes various leading-edge technologies, including but not limited to radionic torsion, biofield generators, Shiva and Shakti neural stimulation systems, and complex signal wave generation. As a military-trained remote viewer and radionics technologist, he assists the brain in directing energy patterns for various remote field manipulation strategies, including biological effects. Wow, Jeff, every time I read that, it's like you're such an intelligent man and you have such amazing training. Without further ado, let's welcome Jeff Harvey to the show. Hi, Jeff. How are you today?
My pleasure, Bernard. Hello, Trevor. Be with you.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you back again 6 months later or whatnot that it is, and I'm looking forward to be discussing this new scalar wave alchemical holograms that you're working with. I believe last time you were on, we were speaking. We spoke a little bit about radionics and remote viewing, and it's just very, very a fascinating field of science for me. And I remember that when we spoke about this, we had talked a little bit about how it sounded like alchemy. And I mean, we're using the term alchemical, and how alchemy and magic are really just undiscovered scientific solutions. So many people think of magic and alchemy as this like hocus pocus fairy tale, when in fact a lot of people on cutting edge technology and science really probably have a little bit of magical training in their background. And I wonder what you feel about that as magic as science.
I think most everyone that's involved in this field does. And let's first of all talk about what magic is.
Yes.
There's MAGIC, which are these they're doing basically sleight of hand, and telling people that it's magic. So anybody who believes that, well, you're fooled. But people that spell it M-A-G-I-C-K, now you're getting into something that's a little bit different. And you can exchange that term with physics. Mm-hmm. Because really all we're dealing with here, Bernard, is physics. They just do not put it in the academia, the standard academia, this information. So you have a lot of people out there who are trying to fool the public into thinking sleight of hand and things that aren't really physics or high-end physics are that. And it's not true. And I really don't approve of it, as you can probably tell from my tone of speech. But I look at it this way. Everybody needs entertainment. Sleight of hand is a lot of fun. But you need to make sure people understand that's what you're doing and not pass it off as actual real magic. In real magic, you are manipulating matter with physics, and there's only a few people on the planet that can do that. When you get into radionics, you really start learning how matter is manipulated, because you're literally able to put energy down into the causal plane, or the ether, if you will, and to make ghost forms and particles that you can't see come into fruition and pop back out again. So you're really working on serious alchemy there. Now there's other types of alchemy too where, well, you probably know about this as well. When you're doing, let's say, a science experiment in chemistry, and let's say you're attempting to do transmutation of matter or you're changing structures, there's a certain amount of things you can do with standard chemistry, with reduction and additions and things like that to chemicals. However, during certain astrological alignments, there are effects you can get that you can't get any other time. That's true alchemy. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of this comes from, because in the secret and mystery schools, they teach a lot of this at the upper ends of the ranks, but certainly not at the low ends.
And to help our listeners understand a little bit, I'm sure many of our listeners are fairly fluent in what we're talking about here, but for someone, let's say, that's just understanding what you just said, the difference between sleight of hand magic and real magic using physics or metaphysics or whatnot, what is a way to kind of just explain a little bit the different fields of energy? And what I mean by that is so many people are stuck in the 3D, five senses way of looking at the world and understanding what science means to them, empirical science. But when we're talking about quantum physics, magic, or alchemy, we're talking about fields that are invisible to people. And can you kind of maybe lay out a roadmap from the material to the cosmic, perhaps?
Sure. And this goes into a subject that's very interesting. I've recently been working on that. It turns out there are certain types of soils and minerals that can literally suck the information fields out of the cosmos and bring them down into the soil and the plants. So there's a lot going on in that. So if you look at the energy levels and the different types of energy, many people believe it's just an electromagnetic universe out there, or an electric universe. And it's a nice concept, and much of the universe is electric, absolutely. Electromagnetics are everywhere. However, there are other things out there that are energy types, and they're called subtle information fields, or subtle fields. And these are fields of information that are so subtle, it takes extraordinarily sensitive people and sensitive devices to measure them. Now, one of the things that's very interesting is the nuclear magnetic resonance people, the ones who build these really cool machines to look into your systems. They realized a while ago, and they've proven, that there is a field that's around all the cells in the human body. There's the same field around every particle of matter in the universe, every single one. In fact, this is the really cool concept, is that every thought form that you have, let's say you have a thought of love or a thought of, anxiety or something like that. Those thoughts all have fields of information around them. So what we've learned to do is we've learned to code those fields Only we don't basically take the code that you see. Let's say you've got a cell in your body around your liver, like a hepatocyte cell. You know, we're not working on the cells themselves. We're working on the field around them. So you look at that field of information. The information that's stored in that field is what tells the cell what to do. And over time, they get corrupted because, you know, you're in electrosmog, you got cell phones and all kinds of issues out there. Bad food, GMO food, all of it poisoning the system and causing a corruption of the field codes. So what we do is we take the codes that repair those fields and we put them back into the body so that it can actually function better. And that's the secret behind what we do. We're actually working on the field of information, not on the cells or particles. So that's really, when you look at information and subtle energy fields, that's really the key and the heart of the matter. So every cell has got a field around it, and every particle. That stone sitting out there in your driveway, there's a field around it, and there's a field around every atom, every electron, every proton, every particle in there. There's a field around it. And then the whole stone has a field. That's a compilation of all the fields. Just like you have a field around each little cell and particle in your body, but your whole field of your body has an aura or a field around it. And you can use Kirlian photography or gas discharge visualization. You could use the aura cam or other ways of doing this, but you can see it. So you can realize that you're always emitting signals and you always have a field around you.
And is it fair to say that, well, you kind of answered this, but let me expand on it a little bit, that let's say from the personal level to the cellular level, we have energy fields around us. That's what you're talking about. And as well, you're bringing in the aspect of astrological alignments and whatnot and how that can manipulate. So as far as we talked a little bit about, or we're going to be talking about a little bit further on the show, but before we do, can you explain where does the astral, where does the etheric, and where does the cosmic fall into all of this?
Okay. Well, as you know, there's many levels outside of your physical body. You've got the mental plane, the causal plane. You've got the etheric and the mental planes. All of these are planes that, or if you will, planes that surround the body. And the further out you go, the weaker these planes are, which is a very interesting concept because it's more subtle the further out you go. And that's really what we're talking about, is how subtle are these fields. But one thing that most people seem to miss is that where does all the information come that programs the actual field around your cells? You know, where'd you get it? You know, did you have it in your pocket? Was it sitting over in a vault somewhere? It's actually the field of information that is the origin of all of the fields. And if you look in between atoms, you know, there's a lot of space between those, the electrons and the protons and the nucleus. And all that empty space is part of the field. So when we look at this, and you realize that everywhere around you, the origin field is out there, and the field around your body is connected into it, and all those other fields, the astral, the causal, the mental planes, all of these are connected together at the same time. In fact, as you see on my emails, I say that we're all in this together. Well, I don't take that lightly. Every single human being and every single particle in the universe is connected all at the same time. So, you know, you think you're acting all alone, but you're really not.
Right.
Basically, no matter what happens, you are affecting everything else at the same time. So when they talk about a butterfly somewhere over in the back end of the world affecting something over here, it does, just on a minute scale. And so do you. Every time you do anything, you're affecting everything in the cosmos. And those energies from those different constellations, they're striking your body all of the time. And what's happening is you're basically reacting to that without even knowing it. And the way that works is the moment you left the birth canal, there is a particular alignment that you're born under. And those particular alignments have different effects on you. So you have general patterns that you're going to live out the rest of your life unless you decide to make some changes to those. And that's where it gets important, because you are not locked in to who you were born to, but it does have a lot to do with how you're regulated. So what we do in radionics is, if we don't like a pattern that we were born with, we work on changing it. And it is possible, because you simply have to take other patterns and alignments and apply them to yourself, even though you weren't born under them. And so all of that connects together into how you're going to be as a human, and that adds into your environment, because you and I both know that depending on who you meet and what you do and all those environmental concerns, that's going to adjust who you are as well and what kind of trends you have over long term.
And if I could just jump in here, because I keep, for some reason, I keep thinking of like DNA, and I know we're going to talk some more about DNA activation, but are you saying that it's also possible perhaps to overcome certain DNA defaults? Let's say like, I don't know, maybe as big as losing your hair at 20, something to that effect, or is that still something that's being looked into?
Well, that's what we're working on right now.
Great.
If you look at what we've got now, there's a recent book that I just picked up, and it's not here yet. I just ordered it. Came across it on the web because I've been looking for more information on genetics that I can apply to radionics, because we're firmly convinced we can turn switches on and off at some point, the DNA switches, or the genetic switches. And so let's say you've got a particular marker for a particular disease. We sooner or later are going to be able to flip that switch. And right now, the only way we can flip it, and not reliably, is by changing the nutrient intake for a human being. Because the closer you get to a reasonably plant-based diet, the much better functioning your system is. Because what happens is when your cells die off through normal apoptosis, because our cells die off every minute of every day, and they get regenerated. So during that regular cycle, if you're feeding tremendous levels of nutrients in, every time those cells regenerate, they're going to get just a hair stronger. You feed them pizza and beer all the time, and they're going to get a hair weaker all the time. And that's how you get into disease states and things like that. So one of the ways that we can make genetic switches go back to normal is by putting in really good quality nutrients into the body. That's one way. But it's not 100% reliable in all cases. There are some genetic switches that get turned on and are a real dickens to turn back off if they're supposed to be off. So we're working on ways of using the radionics to do that. And we now have programs where we do 12-strand DNA activation, and we do DNA repair to repair the broken links. And what we're talking about is the information field of the DNA, not the DNA itself. So what we're doing is we're taking the field of information for all 12 strands, and we're activating that field so that all the fields start spinning up for all 12 strands. Then we take the field for any broken links, and we repair the field for those broken DNA links. And as you know, from what we've discussed already, is that when you repair the field tells it what to do. So then we now are looking at a new book that I was telling you about that goes into trace minerals and genetics. And what they're doing is there's a doctor who has been able over many years to map various gene switches to various trace minerals. And so very shortly I'll be coming out with information in hologram form where we're going to take trace mineral hologram patterns and we're going to apply them to the system so that you can actually repair the field for those genes using the information fields from the various trace minerals that are connected to them.
It sounds absolutely fascinating, and I feel that we need to go really in depth about this. We've only got about another 35 seconds left in the segment. In the meantime, Jeff, somebody had posted a question, and we can answer this in the next 30 seconds. What is it there is? He's asking, there's a David Icke story about a father being hypnotized. He can read a watch behind his apparently invisible daughter. Is that magic with a C or magic with a K? I guess hypnosis. Would that be considered with a K or a C?
That's with a K.
Yeah, that's what I figure. It's consciousness manipulation, absolutely right. The Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are speaking to Jeff Harvey about scalar wave alchemical holograms. And before we went on the break, Jeff was talking to us a little bit about how he is researching ways to change certain DNA codes and structures. Now, for the last week and a half, I've been wearing one of these scalar wave alchemical holograms that Jeff sent me, and just immediately I've got to share with everybody. From the moment I put it on, it felt like it was connecting with my heart chakra. For those of you that understand that whole like magnetic connection thing. I felt like it was connecting with my heart chakra, and over the last, let's say, almost 10 days now that I've had it, my energy levels have risen quite a bit. I feel more focused, and I'm not feeling that worry, negativity, chatter that we get. Don't get me wrong, I still get it, but nowhere near as bad as it has been in the past. So, Jeff, with that being said, tell us a little bit about maybe even the device that I'm wearing. How is it created? How are the holograms created, and the intentions infused into the creation of these devices?
Sure. That's a big part of what we're doing. One of the things you have to, first of all, do when you're working on radionics is you have to be pretty clear of purpose. You really want to be able to help others if you're going to do a great job at it. So I use the SE-5 1000. It's a radionics device, and it's got a code database of 17,000 plus items in it. Now, it's got everything from Bach flower remedies to homeopathics. It's got minerals and vitamins, and it's got all of these other codes. And these codes are the field codes for vitamins, for minerals, for all these other things we're discussing. It's not actually a vitamin we're delivering the information field for that item. And we're talking about 17,000 codes we have at our disposal. Mm-hmm. So the one that you're wearing, which is the one I have on my website, has hundreds of codes in it, hundreds. And basically what we do is we take a blank hologram, and we usually use a certain type of hologram, one that's got a very complex pattern to it, and it has a certain amount of metal density in the film, because at the very low level, down at the atomic level, these are basically crystalline metal structures, the holograms themselves. And as most people know, crystals store information. So what we do is we will actually take the SE-5, and we have software that comes with it that loads up on the computer. And this isn't some $59.95 device you can just pick up down at Walmart. This is a machine that runs anywhere from $4,700 to $6,000, depending on how you get it set up. So it's reasonably expensive, and the technology behind it's ridiculously advanced. So this particular device, it has the software that comes with it, with all those codes. And what we do is we go in and we set up an analysis, basically. So we'll put in the name of the operator. Let's say it's myself. We'll put in the name of the client. Well, in the case of the hologram that you're wearing, I put in general public for the name of the client. Mm-hmm. Then we go in and we start loading codes up into the software, the ones that we think would be most appropriate for a vitality plus DNA hologram. So what we'll do is once we've got all of those loaded, and I'll go over those in a minute, but what we do then is we will transfer them through a USB cable over to the SE-5, and then I will connect up to the output of it, basically a certain nanometer light wave cable, and I will use light in a certain amplitude and a certain nanometer range, and I will deliver the information into the holograms and charge those crystalline metal structures inside with those hundreds of codes. And it goes in and it locks them in there. So then when we get done charging that, and this usually takes overnight and into the next day and sometimes more than that depending on how many codes you do. And so we really pound them in there. Then what we do is we take the hologram, and most people typically will put it on a pendant or something like that that they can wear. But as long as that hologram, even if you left it on its sticky back and stick it in your pocket, as long as it's within your auric field, your body will actually pick up the information out of there from the codes that it needs to repair. So let's say you've got, 300 codes in there, and you only need 25 or 30 codes to be repaired. Your body will only induct what it needs. So it's a really interesting way it gets the job done. So you don't overdose, you can't overdose, and you basically wind up getting what the codes you need are. Now we have a different way of doing it too. We can take a sample of your blood or DNA and we put it in a glassine envelope. We can slide it in the back of the SE-5, and because there are scalar wave amplifier antennas in it, what will happen is we can pick up your entire biofield information set. We can look at all those field codes in your body remotely. I don't even need to have you there.
Wow.
But even better, when we're done with all that, we can actually go and take certain programmed codes and we can actually deliver them to you remotely anywhere you happen to be on the planet using your DNA as the targeting device. So it's really leading edge stuff. And as you know, the military weaponized this many years ago, so they've been doing it for years. And this science is way, way, way older than 60 years old. It's been around a very long time. Back in the days of guys like Abrams and Hieronymus and others like that. So it's a very old technology. However, it's gotten so advanced now, we can literally target you anywhere on the planet with no trouble, and we can deliver codes to you that will help balance things out in your fields. Now, if we look at what we put into the actual system, when we deliver them using DNA instead of a hologram, it's an incredibly strong, powerful signal that goes out to you. And it actually drives that right into the system beautifully. Whereas when you wear a hologram, it's much more subtle. They're always available 24 hours a day right there for you. And your field, when it gets a little bit out of kilter, will go and pull those codes in. Now, you can get so out of tune sometimes that you need another balancing using the SE-5. But for most people, you can actually balance them once with the SE-5 and put the codes in there and then have them wear an amulet with the hologram on it, and they stay in pretty good shape most of the time, unless something really drastic happens. And as you noticed, it's a very subtle feel. In the beginning, it's not like, oh my gosh, it's like a jolt of caffeine. It's not like that. It's very subtle. When I coded the one that you're wearing, which is what we're using right now on our basic codes, when I first started using it, within 30 seconds to a minute, I got out of a vehicle and I started walking really smoothly. My leg gait was extraordinarily rhythmic, and I was like, wow, this is like when I was 19. And so the fellow I was with, we were testing the holograms together. So I said, all right, Evan, what I want you to do is watch and see what you see changed in me over the next, 4, 5, 6 hours. And basically, I had so much energy, I became a bit of a chatterbox. And then what happens is the brain will habituate to that level of information field. And what you get is the brain will basically say, oh, that's the new norm. All right, that's normal. And you won't notice it quite so much the second day. However, over the course of the next 2 weeks, we were looking at the long-term effects and seeing if we could identify anything that we could say is definitely a result of this. And what happened is during the period leading up to putting the hologram on, many things had happened with the business that caused me to get a little cranky. And I was getting cranky on a regular basis, which is not good. And what I noticed is because of the endocrine work we did in the hologram and other things, it smoothed the cranky out. You basically learn to handle things much more smoothly. And even though once in a while you can still get thrown off your game and go on tilt, it happens so very rarely because you're in much more command of your emotional and thought control. So that's what we see as long-term effects, and we're still studying to see what we're going to get down the road. I started out, and as you probably know, I went blind 6 times in the last year and a half. And I reversed it 5 times with no trouble at all using acupuncture and some of the nutrients that I have on my website. But the 6th time, no go. It wasn't working, and it was not good. And I literally couldn't see to read an email. It was that bad. And now today, I'm reading books again. And that's all since I used the SE-5 and the hologram codes for the information fields for the eyes. So there are many things that I've benefited from it. So I'm quite pleased and I'm encouraged. We're testing now a new code for stem cells that we're going to see how well it works. And that's what I've been using on my eyes. And we're not releasing it until we make sure that we know it actually does a good job long term. So that's something we're testing. But back to your original question about what's in this particular hologram, this thing is loaded. First of all, we've got the codes for the Lyme virus for reversing the information fields back to where they belong with that. We've got human growth hormone, ATP or adenosine triphosphate for your energy. And we've got R1H2, which you may not have heard about, but that is the autism virus. Autism, it turns out, is a viral form that's passed down from the parents to the children. And about 80% of the population has it. And it's not being discussed in allopathic medicine because they'd rather sell you lots of drugs. But it's actually a virus, and it takes about 6 months of wearing a hologram to clear those fields, which is quite startling. The way it works is, you know, in the womb, the boys get it right in the brain. Girls get it in their reproductive organs. And usually later on in life, if there's like a toxic insult from vaccines, the vaccines will trigger that virus, and off you go. It'll migrate from the girl's reproductive system up to the brain, and you could get all kinds of symptoms. And it's not necessarily going to show up as standard autism. It could show up as Asperger's. It could show up as 100 other things. But it's still that virus causing it. So when you clear the children, you have to clear the parents too so that they don't conceive again and pass it on. Now, that's in there. Then we have something called Star Wars 2, which is pretty spiffy stuff. As you know, as we go through life, we meet a lot of people who are really, really negative individuals. And you pick up some of that nonsense in your field, the negativity, and then there's negative entities that cause problems. And this program wipes that stuff out in about an hour flat. The entire code base for that program is in this hologram. So it's a great way of helping rid yourself of that, because when you get the crankies, it's normally because you've got negative energy attachment. Because as human beings, unless your endocrine system is all out of whack, we don't get that way. We handle ups and downs quite well. So that's in there. Then we have emotional stress fields. We have fields to balance stress. We've got the lodestone gemstone in there, electromagnetic stress IDFs, and you know there's tons of that out there. Radiation IDFs, and by the way, we did a test on the radiation IDFs recently, and it knocks down radiation from nuclear sources like Fukushima and those 45 leaking reactors in the U.S., knocks it down 20-25%. And I just ran across a compound that they're using right now because it's so effective to actually encapsulate nuclear waste. So we're going to encode that, and we're going to put that into our holograms, and we should be able to boost that up to a really high number. Let's see. We have airport radiation balancing. So all that stuff from walking through those radiation detectors on the airport, we can work on those information fields. We have a whole group for balancing depression that's in this particular code hologram, and we've got many of them. We have a bunch of endocrine fields for hormones, pituitary, and a lot of that. And then we get into the biofield system, which you were talking about earlier, those subtle bodies like your astral body, your causal body, the mental body, and all those other planes. Those subtle bodies are all in this hologram to balance them out. And then we have elemental energies, and we balance those. Then you have directional energies. We balance those for you. So in your biofield system, we do all of that. Then we do your meridians, and I've got some great new information on meridians and how light is used with them. We have the DNA activation codes and the repair codes for DNA. Then we do alignment of the chakras. Then we get into the nutrition and metabolism section, and now we've got codes for metabolism to help keep that boosted up, which, of course, as we all know, if you're picking up a few extra pounds, it's good to have a good metabolism. All the protein amino acids, the vitamins, the minerals, and then the crude minerals. And then we have a bunch of supplements that are in there that are very good for the body. Then we get into the cellular, and we do structure, function, and vitality, all the codes for those. And there's probably another 50 codes there. Then we get into the psychological. We do the primary psychological system, the emotional affirmations to keep you balanced, positive emotional states information and affirmations, and we also put in adrenaline and serotonin, and there's a whole ton of others that we're going to be putting in over time to boost that up. But it's so loaded right now, I'm not sure what I'm going to take out to put it in because it's working so well. But that's it.
Wow. And I've got to say, I can't help but it sounds to me like you've really run the gamut of the energy bodies, the subtle energy bodies, and everything that can help balance a human being, get you back into a good shape, help you have more balance emotionally, metaphysically, energetically, your chi energy. It kind of is the well, and I mean this as a compliment. It's kind of like the orgone of the 80s. I don't know if you remember when orgone came out. Everyone was like, oh, it's going to help with the electromagnetic fields and this. This is that times a million, it seems like to me. And it feels like it. I've got to tell you, it does feel like it. And for those of you listening that don't, or just joining in on the conversation, we had spoken earlier about how Jeff is working with hologram energy to alter these subtle fields within your organs and our mind and even the energy bodies that are around our body, from the astral to the etheric and whatnot. So what he's done is he's putting it and creating the code of it into a hologram, and then we wear it. And again, that's what I've been wearing this last week or so, and it's just been absolutely amazing. Jeff, we have about 4 minutes left on this segment, and we do have a question from somebody about, well, here's the question. Do you have any tips to connect spirituality to science giving us gnosis? Is it just nutrition, exercise, and meditation? Somehow it seems more.
It is more. As you know, if you do hermetic exercises, you can get your brain to be very, very strong, or your mind, actually, not your brain. Your brain's nothing but an interface. The mind actually does most of the work. But yes, hermetic exercises are very important for doing that, to helping with gnosis. Because what you really want to have happen is you want to be able to reach out into these fields of information and pull it in. And by working with hermetic exercises to build your strength of mind and your strength of purpose, we can actually add in affirmations using the machine. We can type an affirmation in and derive a field code for that particular set of words, and we can deliver it via hologram. I just did a gentleman up in Canada who had some depression, and we just did a whole set of hologram cards for him. He got a machine called the Qio remote balancer, and it takes hologram cards that we can program for you. And you slide those in, and you can work on yourself or somebody across the planet with that. And so, yes, you can certainly work on gnosis and gaining more information by using these technologies.
Wow. So we're really at the point now where science and magic are starting to come together. It seems like I can't help but as you're explaining these hologram cards, it reminds me of the old tarot spells or whatnot. Using a tarot card as intention. Here we're doing something that is a hologram with a field to it, a created field intention sourced into it. That's absolutely fantastic.
Release, yes.
So, Jeff, again, we got about 2 more minutes. Tell everybody listening where they can find these devices and learn more about them. What is the website that they can contact you and learn more?
Sure. The website is www.jeftech.net, which is jefftech.net, but there's only one F in Jeff. I prefer phone calls, so if somebody's interested in discussing one of these or ordering it, give me a call at 570-219-2025, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. It's pretty simple because when you get up on the website, on the left there's a menu. You click on holograms, and a new menu will appear, and you've got the basic machine, the SE-5000. It shows some of the programs that come with it, the add-on program.
Today we are speaking with Jeff Harvey on scalar wave alchemical holograms. Before we bring Jeff back on the line, let me just remind everybody that we will be doing a live video show with James Swagger. He's the expert on the new grains Sirius passage graves, as well as the passage grave alternative archaeology surrounding, and these passage graves are all over the world. Anyway, we've had him on the show before, but we're doing a video talk this Thursday at 4 p.m. on thegic.org, and of course you can always find more about me and the work that I do at thegic.org. As well, I haven't even done that yet today. We are happy to announce that we have launched a new blog incorporating different writers and showcasing the work of myself and these other writers. And it just so happens one of the contributors is a fellow host here at The Truth Denied. Roxy Lopez is one of the authors for the blog, and the blog is called Just Bernard and Company. And you can find that at justbernard.com. As well, we have Terry Joyce, the Hollywood Hemptress, is a marijuana activist, cannabis activist. She'll be writing for us, and all of our work that we do here originally will be posted there at justbernard.com. Of course, the name of the blog is Just Bernard and Company, and we are very, very pleased to announce the release of this new blog. To showcase all of the work that myself and my contemporaries do together. Okay, so now let's get back to the show, and let's get back to speaking with our good friend Jeff Harvey. We've covered so much information, Jeff, and there's a really good question on the chat right now, and I can't help but wonder if what the answer is actually. Someone is asking, as you are getting more information, and I guess it would mean to say as you develop new codes, is there a way to update these particular holograms, or do they need to create a new one?
Okay, this is really interesting too, because I've been talking to several people about this, the manufacturer and some other people, to see what we're going to do with this regard. I'm considering doing a couple of things. First of all, the holograms, when you wear them, let's say on an amulet outside of your shirt, when you get in bright sunlight, you want to put that inside of your shirt, because the X-rays from sunlight or those airport detectors can corrupt the codes in them. So what we're talking about doing is, because none of us is perfect, you're going to go through a scanner or something once in a while, and you may need to have it recoded. So what we're thinking about doing is maybe doing a very inexpensive coding procedure, recoding, where for like $10 we'll recode the entire hologram for you. Now the holograms have a lifespan anyway, and usually it's 8 months to 15, 16 months, depending on how well they're coded and what the crystalline matrix is in them and how much it can hold. So we're thinking about doing a recoding for people who request it, and I think that's probably the right thing to do, because I don't want to see people buy a new one. It doesn't make sense to put out the cash for a new one when we can just recode it. And then any time we recode it, all the latest codes are going to go into it. We're not going to backdate you back to an older version. Everybody, when we make advances, gets to participate in that if they send it back in for a recoding. And I think $10 gets the shipping and everything and the labor out of the way, because what we'll do is we'll save them up for, let's say, a week, and at the end of the week we'll do a coding for 100 of them or whatever it is. Because right now we have the ability to code 1,000 at a time without any effort, and I can go probably up to 5,000 at a time.
Wow.
So it's not a big deal. I just ordered another 1,000 holograms because I'm getting ready to release some psychological holograms, and so they've got a different pattern on them. And basically we're going to do a couple of different groups of holograms. As you know, we have the vitality plus DNA. We're going to do some on psychological or affirmation type things where we're working on your attitude, helping keep you balanced from depression and things of that nature, because depression has a field of information that surrounds it, and we can affect that field. We don't work on depression itself. We work on the field that surrounds the effect of depression. So we're not practicing medicine. We are basically working on field codes. So we'll do that. I have one already coded and done for viral, bacterial, and infectious diseases. And that's all inside of one hologram program, which I'll be releasing in the next couple of days. That'll be on the website. And then we're doing one for eye codes, because as you know, I'm testing that stem cell one. And I've had stellar results in the last few weeks. I'm literally now reading all kinds of things where I couldn't before. So it's steady and it's slow, but it is regenerating. And that's because I'm working on the field of information that controls things. So those are all holograms that we're doing in the next week that will be loaded up on the website. And so anybody who needs a recoding, we'll be happy to do that for them. I'm also thinking of putting out a service where we do something called the Harmony Club, where we will balance harmoniously. Now remember, everybody is connected, right? So if we do a planetary balance and a local balance on people so that we are harmoniously balanced together, everybody who joins the club, and it'll be really inexpensive, and what we'll do is we'll take a machine, and at a certain time, usually once a week, we will go ahead and balance everyone in the club using that Harmony code set. Now I'm working with the manufacturer because you have to be careful. There are some codes you can't balance multiple people with. You have to balance one person at a time. But I think we're going to be able to do the Harmony just fine, and it should work out very nicely for people.
That sounds fantastic. And for our listeners that, let's say, might be skeptical to this concept or just don't understand the, I don't know if we want to call it the physics, the energetics, or whatnot behind it, as we mentioned in the beginning of the show, you were a military-trained, or you are a military-trained remote viewer. Now, does that help with what you're doing now?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think that remote viewing is a good thing to learn. I was trained by some military people when I was out of the military, and basically it really helps your right brain activity ramp up. Now, when I got trained, I had just been recovering from a really serious illness. It was life-threatening, and my life was saved using the Heal Detox Kit and some other things, which is why I became a practitioner. So basically, if you look at all of these things that we're doing, we're trying to be able to get people balanced and be able to help them advance. And that's really what I think we're all here to do, I think.
I couldn't agree more. I feel that that's really the calling of the planet at this moment. And I love that the way you explained our cells rejuvenating were by nutritionally helping the cells regenerate better the following time they regenerate. We're evolving. And that goes with what you're talking about here, that we are, as a planet, evolving to a new way of being, a new awakened and or just even living at our highest potential, both health-wise and mentally and psychically. And I feel that the work that you're doing is a part of that. It's a part of that step. And
what was beneficial because it taught you how to do idiomotor responses, and we use that with radionics.
I'm sorry, what was that term that you just used?
Idiomotor response. In other words, when you do a remote viewing session, let's say you're doing coordinate remote viewing like Ed Dames teaches, all right, which is not the original remote viewing, but it's good stuff. It works. So you take a set of numbers or coordinates and you put them down on a piece of paper. The moment you get done copying them down, your mind goes and uses the nervous system to launch out into the field, the origin field, and it goes and pulls the information that you're trying to target in that particular coordinate set. And as soon as it locates it, your nervous system takes a little jump, because as that packet of data comes in, your nervous system has like this little spike, and your pen jerks on the paper, and it creates what we call an ideogram, where you scribble a little bit on the paper just for a moment. But that's the connection to the field of information that you were after. Now with radionics, it's a little different, but it's the same kind of response. What we do is we have something called a stick pad on a radionics device, and it's a pad that you take your fingers and you just draw little circles on it. You just rub the plate, and whether it's clockwise, counterclockwise, whatever you prefer, 2 fingers, 1 finger, 3 fingers, whatever. And as you do that, and you are concentrating or focusing on the target, you're turning the amplitude dial to see if you can locate where the setting is for that piece of information, or the code. And so once you hit that code setting, your fingers will stick to the plate. And that's an idiomotor response. So by learning remote viewing and getting to learn idiomotor responses, you can literally operate radionics quite nicely that way. And we can not just take the codes, there's 17,000 codes in the database, but what if there's something in there, something that's not in there that we want to code for? We can take that rub plate and the amplitude dial. We can focus on whatever that is, and we can do a stick plate rub, turn the dial, and when we get that jump or that lock on your fingertips on it, we've got the setting or the code for that particular item. And we can enter that into our database and add it to the database that's already there. So you can code hundreds of thousands of other codes right in the database anytime you want. So you can't just build holograms out of codes that are there already. You can generate codes. I just did one for somebody who is trying to block negative astral energies from cross-dimensional issues. And we just built a code for it. We structured the statement. We plugged it, and this is the other way you can do it. We have something called a word tuning. And what we can do is we can take the tuning assistant that's in the software, and it's really a pretty cool feature. Basically what happens is we go up to, at the very top of the menu system in Tools, there's something called a tuning scanner. And you can type in the sentence or the word or the statement and click Calculate, and it puts it through an algorithm, and it will come out with a code that's 90% correct or better. And this took them several years to develop this, but so you can either tune it by hand using the stick pad and the dial, or you can plug it in, and you'd be within 90%. So we can do that.
You know what? I personally really like that feature. I run a weekly intention circle here, and a majority of our time is spent on doing exactly that, but just verbally, using the right phrase. Okay, I intend I am living healthier, or I intend that I am working on the job that, or at the job that I want. So it seems that you've added a bit of science to it to help enhance just the verbiage that's being used. Is that about what it is?
Sure, because what you're doing is you're programming your subconscious mind through your conscious mind to do exactly that with the intention. That's exactly what you should be doing, because you're literally talking to your DNA and telling it what you want done. And the DNA then fires off a bunch of photons to go make it happen. Well, what we do is very similar to that. We take the code that in the origin field equals exactly what that statement is. And that code is a fact. And then we basically will take that, put it into a hologram, or just deliver it through the generator through DNA, and it will take that field code and it will insert that right into your field, so that your subconscious picks it up. Again, you're doing it with verbals to the subconscious, and what we're doing is you verbalize it once as you type it into the word tuning, and then you hit calculate, then you take the mathematical equation for it, and you load that into your field. So you're just doing a little double duty. But what you're doing with the intentions, that's exactly how most people should be doing it.
I love it. I love it, and I can't help but it reminds me, hearing what you're saying and how it's doing these mathematical equations, it reminds me of my days of esoteric training and getting all these mathematical equations and saying, I don't get it. That just takes it way beyond my limit of understanding, like, advanced high magic type stuff, and it's being turned into a computer program. It's just absolutely amazing, and I remember back in the 80s talking about that. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could put this in a computer program?
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I remember because I used to be looking for I said, we need a mind amplifier. That's what we really
need. Yes.
And now it's here. You have them, and so, people say, well, what do you do with it? And I ask them, I say, what do we don't do with it? Because we can work on matter, the actual field that surrounds matter. We can work on the field that surrounds your cells. We can work on the field that surrounds your emotions. We can work on the field that surrounds every single thought you have. So if you want to help get yourself balanced or use particular thoughts to program your own subconscious, somebody once called it do-it-yourself MK Ultra, and I thought that was kind of funny.
I like that.
Yeah, you can basically program yourself. So instead of some government stooge putting something in there that's bad for you, you can put really good stuff in there.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's funny because that's part of my philosophy when I have, for lack of a better term, newbies that are just, awakening to this path. I'm like, you need to learn, A, how you're being programmed, and B, how to reprogram. And that's exactly what you're saying. I like that. Do-it-yourself MK Ultra. I'm going to start using that.
I just typed in the tuning for Bernard Ascends. Now I'm clicking calculate, and the code for the field for Bernard Ascends is 2409648.
And, well, I have to write that down now. 240?
2409648.
Okay.
And it's Bernard Ascends.
Now, how would that be
applied?
Transferred to a hologram, or how? What is the technology of, let's say, using that particular code, and what do you put the number into the hologram creator, and it just does its thing?
I go into the software. I take this code that the software made. I copy the code down. Well, what I first usually do is I'll copy the code and I'll copy the words down and I'll put it in a Word file. Or I use OpenOffice because it's a really nice program, and I'm not a fan of Microsoft. So I'll put it in there, and then I'll go over to the software, and I will add this particular tuning, which is called Bernard Ascends, into the software. Once I've added the name of it, then I'll double-click on the file, and it will open up a field, and I can put the code in for it. Once I click OK and save, that's now able to be used in any operation I do again. If I don't save it, obviously it can't be used again. We'd have to retype it. But it's pretty interesting how it works. It's one of the reasons why I really love the software, because it takes away some of the burden. It's repeatable because it's basically going into the origin field, and it's using an algorithm to get as close as it can to the field of origin. And 90% is pretty darn close. So then what we do is we put it in the software, and when I make a program with a bunch of codes, I just include that code in it. I transfer it over to the SE-5 from my laptop. The SE-5 then will transfer it right into the hologram using the programmer cable. And boom, a couple hours later, it's all done.
That's pretty fascinating. We have, we got about 9 more minutes. Good. I have a question for you myself, and I can't help but wonder, and I'm getting a sense of this in my gut, and I'm wondering if I'm correct. All these programs and these devices or these programming devices that you're using, like the SE-5 or let's say the Shiva Shakti system, things like that, is it fair to say that, like yourself, many of these people that develop this technology are either former military and or magically trained in these higher magical systems of knowledge?
Well, if in the Todd Murphy's case, he's not military. He was a protege of Michael Persinger up at Laurentian University.
Oh, I know that name, yeah. Okay.
Now, Persinger worked with the Navy way back, but he had a parting of company because of some disagreements in the way they do business. And as we both know, the Navy runs all the intelligence communities and all the bad guys. And then above them are, the Vatican and the rest of the people. But Todd worked with him in the university, and he said, I want to go build one of these things. And he did. And so he runs that company. So he's absolutely not a military guy. He's strictly civilian.
Okay.
Now, Don, the fellow who manufactures the SE-5, he's absolutely not a military type. He's very, very, very peaceful. And as you know, I can be excited into non-peacefulness, but at my core, I'm a pretty peaceful guy. If I could end my days, I would end them sitting on the bank of a pond or a river with a fishing pole. That's the extent that I need to get excited. But in this day and age where we live, we have certain things we have to deal with, so that's one of the reasons I do some of the things I do. I'm trying to come up with solutions to some of the things they're doing. Like right now, they're tracking you via satellite with DNA. So we're working on ways of blocking the tracking using our particular machines. So we're working on counter operations against what they're doing. And I think that's the highest and best use for these technologies, other than trying to spiritually gain more ascension and being able to keep your wellness in order. Because this has thousands upon thousands of wellness codes. We can look at literally your heart, the field codes, your liver, lung, veins, capillaries, joints, anything in the body has a field, and we can look at those fields and we can balance those fields. So in the wellness arena, there is no other machine in the marketplace that's even close to it. Not the QXCIO, not the EIS, not any of those. See, a lot of those machines that are out there are nothing more than astrology programs with a random number generator. They look good. They got great graphics, but it's fake because they're not tapping into the field codes. They're simply giving you an idea of what it might be. They'll tell you that's exactly what the issue is, but it's not quite correct.
Now, you're bringing up something that, it's funny, it's a topic I brought up last week on my show here where I was discussing the awakening process and things to be aware of. And one of the points that I made I believe it was. Actually, no, I take that back. It was a Facebook post that I made, and I had gone into an argument. You're gonna giggle at this. I got into an argument with a Gardnerian Wiccan about being so open about esoteric knowledge, and I said, well, if we are so worried about, these negative, dark, whether you want to call them brotherhoods or Luciferians or secret societies or whatever, if we're so concerned about them destroying the planet, why aren't we all practicing and learning how to do white magic to help us and to help humanity? And to me, it sounds like this is kind of what you guys and the technology that you're coming up with is. Is that a fair synopsis on the big picture? I mean, is this a technology that can help counteract the technology that they're using against us, is what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. My God, that's what I've spent the last 10 years doing. That's why I work with the neurostimulation systems and with the SE-5, because, in the hands of somebody creative, there is nothing you can't use to counter something else. A pencil is not a pencil. Where I came from in the intelligence community, a pencil is a deadly weapon. You don't want to go up against certain people with a pencil. But out here in the civilian world, you'd be like, well, what's he going to do with that? Give me a 45. No, we use these as counter-offensive weapons. And you have to look at people like Monsanto and DuPont and other slimy type companies who are basically ruining the health of the planet, and they're being allowed to do so by a corrupt government. So you've got a huge criminal cabal. So the work we do is important in that we are coming up with strategies to defeat some of the effects that they're causing in our bodies and our minds, because there's all kinds of mind control out there being pointed at you. So our job is to come up with code sets that will help balance you so you're not getting all strung out from this stuff. So while I really appreciate folks like in the Wiccan orders that do a lot of nature work and a lot of elemental energy work, I think those are very valuable because those are all hermetic exercises.
Yes.
And so they're all very, very valuable, and they help build you. And what we do is we simply build on that a little bit by saying, okay, now if we want to, we can take and dose you with this all day, and you don't have to keep thinking about it. It'll just be going into your field. So instead of spending 24 hours on a particular operation or a ritual, you can have that ritual operating in you all day, all night, without lifting a finger.
That sounds good to me.
I mean, we're all looking to have more time for quality with the people we love, so let's take some of the drudgery out of it and let's use technology for what it should be used for.
Right.
Give us more time to do other things.
Yeah. And I think the point of, just to go back a little bit to my little debate with the Gardnerian priestess, was she was concerned that I was sharing information publicly. And I was like, well, I feel that we're at a point now where we need to start sharing some of this information, just like what we're doing on today's show, sharing technology and information to empower humanity and not keep it within the dark, or even whether it be positive or negative esoteric orders, that this information really needs to either be utilized by someone like yourself who can put it into a alchemical hologram to share with somebody, but nonetheless to be shared publicly to help us all and to empower us all, I feel.
The days of hiding information for only the adepts is over. Because, people will say, don't cast your pearls before swine. And my answer for that is first of all, swines are smarter than...
You're listening to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. As someone who also walks the talk and does not give in to corporate funding or advertising, I know the importance of funding a radio station like this. Revolution Radio does count on your donations, so by all means, take a moment and make a small donation. As well, the GIC.org is also funded by the public. We are crowd-funded as well. So I can relate to that. I know how hard it is. We sacrifice a lot, and yet you're getting all this wonderful, wonderful information without, the corporate sponsor saying, you can't say this or you can't do that. And that's the way we like it around here. So thank you and welcome back to the show. I just wanted to make a quick announcement before we bring Jeff back into the conversation. Roxy Lopez and myself just announced yesterday, or booked, I should say, our new series together. We're going to be doing a YouTube series. It will be released in November, weekly episodes. I don't know what you call them, little snippets, about 15, 20-minute episodes, and it will be called Contradiction. So if you're a fan of myself and Roxy Lopez, you're going to like Contradiction because we're going to be sharing two sides of the very coins we talk about here, whether it be chemtrails or GMOs and all of these topics that we all discuss on a regular basis here on Revolution Radio and as well in our other consciousness communities. I feel you're really going to enjoy it. We will be filming the series live on the air on the GIC's pledge drive on October 12th, Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you want to watch the unedited version of the series and watch me and Roxy crack each other up, go ahead and join us. That'll be October 12th live on thegic.org on our live stream channel. Anyway, we just had a really good quote from Jeff, and I'm thinking of going back and typing that up and posting that. That we have to share all the information that we can with everybody. It's not just for adepts. It's not just for those in the know or in the circle or in the clique. And if you're wasting your time. For me, what I love about what you just said, Jeff, is that, when we're dealing with the Internet, either people read it, either people follow it, either people live it and walk the talk, or they just look at it as entertainment, and it doesn't affect me any way in that sense. My question is to you, actually, dealing with what we're talking about here. Is it fair to say, and I know this is going a little off topic with the holograms, but is it fair to say, and this is something that I've been perpetuating now for several weeks now, that the information of the adept, of the magician, of the sorcerer, alchemist, whatever, is not good or evil in itself, but how it's being applied like any technology? And it kind of goes with what we're talking about here. What is your feeling on that?
I've got a torn feeling because I'm going to expand on what you said a little bit.
Okay, great.
Any technology, any tool, any device, any person can be used for good or evil. What I take example with are people saying there's no such thing as good or evil. It's just low vibration or high vibration. And I say, look, if you want to BS yourself, go ahead, but please don't try that with me, because there is good and bad. We know that. You don't rape a 4-year-old child. That's bad. And so, yes, there is good and bad, not just low vibration and high vibration. So it's very important, I think, that every day you try very hard, and I fail miserably some days, but try very hard to do as much good as you can and as little damaging things as you can. Because what you're attempting to do is to leave a footprint behind you when you're gone that basically says you harmed as few as possible. When I was a younger man, I harmed many people, and I look back on that and I'm like, my God, how did I ever do that? That's not me. I don't know who did that. But, if you just simply get back on the horse when you screw up and you keep trying to be a better person, you're going to get there. And you'll do less and less that's damaging to others. So I think it's very important to keep in mind good versus evil and what side you want to be on. And again, just like you were doing with your intentions, when you get your circle together, have an intention that says, I will be the best person I possibly can be. I will do as little harm as humanly possible, and I will try and aid as much as I can. And by doing that, you draw that to you, instead of drawing in all the nasty conflicts. We were talking about, delivering information like that, and something that I neglected to tell you about earlier that I said we cover is meridians and light.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're delivering the information like you do with the intentions, you're talking directly to your DNA, and your DNA, if it's nothing else, it's a scalar wave antenna which uses photons or light energy to deliver its information. We know it for a fact now. We've got pictures of actual DNA, not artist renditions, but pictures of actual DNA doing this. So one of the add-ons for the SE-5 is this cable that's got a light pen. Now it comes with a light pen, which is red, and you can use it for, touching acupuncture points and activating, or, putting them to sleep, whatever you want to do. But you can actually go down to the origination point for your meridians, and you can use the new light pen, which is an add-on for it, but it's got a quartz crystal in the end of it to deliver the light right up through those meridian channels. And it turns out that they're light tubes. Everybody has been talking about for many years, what is the energy going through a meridian? And it turns out it's light energy. It's photons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a guy named Fritz Popp. He was a really interesting German scientist. And he found out that, when we get sunlight, we actually pick up a very important ultraviolet frequency, 380 nanometers. Now, when it goes into your body normally, it does tremendous things to wipe out cancer. But if you have a chemical called benzo-alpha-pyrene, benzo-A-pyrene, in your system, when that light strikes you, what it will do is it will scramble that wavelength and put out a different one, and it will literally cause cancer.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you have benzo-E-pyrene, a different chemical in the body, it's totally harmless to humans. And there are many people out there who have certain skin conditions where they cannot convert 380 nanometers into the body directly. It'll get scrambled, and you see a lot of brown spots all over them at like 5 years old. They're just loaded with skin spots. And so what we can do now is we can take these light pens with the crystal on them, and we can deliver that exact wavelength of light into the body at any acupuncture point or anywhere else we choose. And you'd ask, why do you have a quartz crystal on the tip? And it turns out that they did an experiment that's very famous by now, where they had a petri dish. On each side of in between the petri dish, they put a big cardboard barrier, and in the middle of it was a little glass window. Well, glass blocks UV, which is kind of interesting in the way it works. Quartz passes everything. And so what they would do is if they had a disease that was in the petri dish on the left, and there was glass in that window, it would not transfer it through. Whereas if you had quartz in there, it would literally transfer it right through the other petri dish, and both of them would die. So it turns out that by using quartz on the end of our light wands, they can actually deliver the frequencies that we need, even if they get blocked by the body. We can deliver them right through the meridians to work on different things in those fields of information. So very critical information that's out there about light, and it's only just now beginning to be used by practitioners. I just got ours in the other day, so I was going through the training course, and I thought, I need to tell Bernard about this.
Absolutely. I need to do some research on that. I'm going to be teaching a introduction to Reiki healing on Thursday, so that would be very helpful in helping to explain the meridians and chi energy and how it works. I love it. I love it. Great stuff. Jeff, and we've only got about 15 minutes left, so I'm kind of going to do what I call, the freestyle questions that we have appearing on the chat and whatnot. And, of course, we'll talk a little bit more about how people can follow up with you before we end. But someone posted a question. I'm not quite sure what this is. It's in the chat. I know that you saw it. I need to know when I hear an intellectual's comprehension of the word love. I'm not quite sure what that question is trying to ask. Are they trying to ask how does an intellectual comprehend the word love?
I think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, so that's the way I'm going to pose it to you. How does an intellectual comprehend the word love?
Well, it depends on if that intellectual is intuitive as well. There's many people out there who are intellectual and intuitive. And I'm a firm believer, which I think is what we're really getting at here. I'm a firm believer that if you are totally a left brain individual, love is almost impossible to grasp. You've heard about it. You've seen videos and movies on it. You've heard poems about it. But until you've actually been in love, really, it's almost impossible to grasp. But the first time you are in love and you realize it, there's no discussion. There's no need for anybody to explain it to you because you feel it. And what this person sounds like they're saying is they want to hear how an intellectual would comprehend love. And the question I would put to them is this an intellectual who has never experienced love, or is this someone who has? Because if it's somebody who has, they'll still be hard-pressed to explain it to you. However, they'll know exactly what it feels like. But someone who's never felt it, it's very difficult for them to quantify it or to come up with an expression that could adequately convey it. Because when you talk about love, you really talk about how you interact with somebody. You don't really talk about the word love. You talk about actions, feelings, and thoughts towards another person. And it's a very selfless thing by comparison to, oh, well, I'll love you if you do this. I'll love you if you do. Mm-hmm. Your dog does not tell you he will love you if you feed him.
Very true. And I think that's really, you hit the nail on the head there when it comes to identifying that emotion of love, if it is unconditional. Passion and ego-based relationships are one thing, but I feel like you said, it has to be unconditional in order for it to be a pure love. And I don't want to get too religious or spiritual. Well, I always get religious and spiritual, but to me, love is God. It's Goddess. It's the source of all life that gives us life. And again, another characteristic of that is it's unconditional. It's streamed. The life force is given to us without question.
Exactly. You know, when I talk about the origin field, that's what I'm talking about. Some people call it God. Some people call it Buddha, whatever. It doesn't really matter what you call it. What matters is that information comes to you with no qualms, no guarantees, no conditions. It just comes to you. And some people, you know, in certain religions that we know of, will tell you that if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you don't get that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's just another lie. It's no different than the guy practicing MAGIC, sleight of hand, and telling you it's physics MAGICK. It's just a lie, and when you get a little older in life, you typically can tell when somebody's doing that. And what I tell people is, when you find people that can't tell you the truth, it's better to go find people that can and spend your time with them, because you'll be happier and you'll be much healthier.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And we have another question about DNA. And I know we spoke about it a little bit earlier, and I'm sure you were making reference to, when we were talking about the devices, how the devices, you're learning how to change DNA, but maybe the question is making reference to either through our mind or through our diet, can we change our DNA structure?
Absolutely. We were discussing that earlier. One of the ways we can play with those genetic switches is by eating high-quality, high-nutrient-dense food. On my website, I have something called Spiruzan, which is a little tablet. It's 100% plant-based, 65% protein in a plant-based format. It's got a boatload of minerals, boatload of amino acids, and vitamins. And then the other part of that tablet is astaxanthin, which is probably the most powerful antioxidant we have. It never becomes a free radical, even though many other antioxidants do when they get used up. This one doesn't. And instead of handling only one free radical at a time, it can handle many.
Oh, wow.
So that's why when you take super nutrients like that, and you don't have to dose them heavy, just 3 of them before a meal, you basically can really boost up the level of your health just by keeping the basics in there that you really need. You don't have to take 18 different supplements to do the job. I think we take too much anyway. And then with the hologram, I put all the codes for all the vitamins and minerals and amino acids in the codes. So you're getting the energetic or etheric information directly put into the fields of your body for those anyway.
Right. That sounds great answer. Thank you. I gotta jump in here with one question. I hope we have enough time. We got about 6 more minutes, but this is a personal question. With all, and this is about nutrients, Jeff, about nutrients. With the, what is it now? The Codex Alimentarius and all these corrupt, these GMO-based nutrients or companies that are using GMO in their vitamins and whatnot. Who do you know, or how do we know to trust what nutrient we're getting? Let's say I buy Centrum 100, and it's supposed to have 100% of all my daily multivitamins. How do I know that it's not GMO? How do I know that it really is 100% of my necessary vitamins now that we have Codex Alimentarius? What would be a great direction to look at? Of course, your site, but how do we know that we're getting the real deal when it comes to really good nutrients that are not GMO and or undernourishing?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, if you buy a $9 bottle of vitamins, you're probably buying a petroleum-based source of nutrition. And I don't know about you, but I'm not drinking motor oil, not for you or anybody else. And that's, Centrum and all these other junk vitamins, that's what they are. Well, I use specific labs, and, I'm board certified in nutrition, so I spent months and months hunting for labs that did organic only or whole food only. And I came up with 2 labs, and they do a good job for me. Like Biosan, which is innate response products, those guys do all natural nutrients. And they're not just the isolated version, they've got the compounds that help make these things work. Like if you take ascorbic acid only, and you call that vitamin C, you're getting maybe 1/100th of what you need to get. There are many, 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 many other compounds that go with it to make vitamin C work. But if you only take an isolate, you're not getting it all. So when I put things on my website, it's things that have all the compounds built in so that you're serving a much bigger part of your body and your health.
So what you're saying is that it's important for listeners and consumers to understand that just by taking something that says vitamin D, it doesn't mean your body's going to process it without, acidophilus or whatever it is that you need to have.
Oh, you're talking about precursors. Yeah, there are many different vitamins and nutrients that, let's say you take a particular vitamin, it might take 1 or 2 other vitamins and 3 minerals for it to work properly in the body. So if you don't make sure you've got all of them there, you got a monkey wrench in the works and it just stops working. And that's why we don't take things like Centrum, other things like that, is because petroleum-based vitamins, you pee out most of your excess, whereas with whole food, most of those recirculate in your body till they're used up. So you get a lot more value for your buck, and they're about 3 times as potent. So even though they're a little more expensive, in the end run, they're cheaper because you use less of them.
Yeah, that would make sense. And again, let me see if I have time, because I do have a question for you. Yeah, we have about 1 minute left for this question. One of my biggest things that I've noticed is, for me, and again, this is a personal question, how acidophilus has changed my everything, my digestion and everything. However, I keep switching brands because I'm not quite sure who to trust. What are your recommendations on probiotics?
I used to use the most powerful probiotic we had for clinical research. And then the Human Biome Project came out, and we use spore biotics now. Regular probiotics, most of them get killed before they even get into your intestinal tract. Spore biotics live all the way through, and they're 10 times more powerful. That's what we use, and it's called Mega Spore Biotic. It's up on my website under the suggestion section. And oh my God, you should see what we do for people with antibiotic damage. It's amazing when we bring them back.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm going to have to. I'm out of my my probiotic pearls, so I think I may have to go to your website and check that out. Can you again remind us where we can find you and how we can contact you?
Sure. It's www.jeftech.net, and my phone number is 570-219-2025, and I do prefer.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.